A deadly conduct conviction has a punishment range of 2 to 10 years. Austin police officer Christopher Taylor could also get probation because he has no prior criminal convictions.
Tonight, a former Missouri City police officer is facing manslaughter charges after crashing his patrol car, killing a mother and son.
What does it take to cut the bad apples?
You know, there's union protection. The officers that are members of the union, so there are things that between contractual obligations between the FOP union and the sheriff's office / city of Jacksonville about some of the job protections that they have are good things, absolutely good things. However, sometimes they can be stumbling blocks towards removing that bad apple.
This morning, Officer John Burgos was arrested on 1 count of false imprisonment, a 3rd-degree felony, and 1 count of battery, which is a 1st-degree misdemeanor. As he has been criminally arrested, he is now the subject of an internal investigation by JSO. He has been stripped of all police authority and suspended without pay. While there is due process that must be followed, the agency will be terminating Officer Burgos. This is an active criminal case, so there is limited information with which I can provide you at this time. However, the following is a summation of the facts which support Burgos' arrest. Around 4 p.m. yesterday, Burgos was on duty as a patrol officer in uniform. He was dispatched to a call for service and met with a crime victim. Because of the victim's privacy rights, I will not provide any identifying information about the victim or the underlying call for service. After the initial investigation was completed, Burgos returned and met with the victim again, purporting to be conducting an additional investigation. While alone with the victim and under the color of authority, Burgos did not allow the victim to leave the area, and he touched the victim without valid consent. After Burgos left the dispatch location, the victim called JSO and reported Burgos' conduct. Immediately, detectives with JSO's integrity unit began an investigation. Based on the totality of facts gathered during this investigation, Burgos was arrested by integrity detectives for false imprisonment and battery early this morning.
Yeah, Kent, we obtained Burgos' arrest report, and while quite a bit of it is redacted, it does show that he was wearing his body camera when he first interacted with the victim. But it says when he returned, he had taken his body camera off. Now, the report goes on to say Burgos told the victim, "You're a beautiful girl." We've also learned she was able to record part of their interaction with her cell phone. Officer John Burgos is used to being on the side of law enforcement, but this afternoon he found himself in front of a judge.
Burgos is charged with...
During his first appearance, the judge shared Burgos' bond conditions, ordering him to stay away from the victim and wear GPS monitoring.
GPS for count 2.
This stemming from his arrest this morning. The details provided by JSO are disturbing, to say the least. The director says this started when Burgos met with a crime victim who had called for help. At a later time, the director says Burgos went back to the scene of the crime.
Purporting to be conducting an additional investigation. While alone with the victim and under the color of authority, Burgos did not allow the victim to leave the area, and he touched the victim without valid consent.
After Burgos left, she called for help and then reported him to police. What goes through your mind when you hear this?
It's infuriating for the whole profession of law enforcement, but it's also, you know, I've got a soft spot for victims. The police department is not a dating site.
News4JAX crime and safety analyst Tom Hackney was with JSO for more than 3 decades and served as a supervisor for many of those years. I showed him the list outlining Burgos' background within the department. He has 3 separate vehicle crashes on his record, 2 of them reported in 2020. He had a couple of other complaints, but what stood out to us were allegations of violation of weapons policy, failure to conform to work standards, and incompetence. The report says the action taken was a level 2 written reprimand. Today, the director confirmed Burgos had been under the microscope.
He never did anything to get terminated, but he was certainly working towards that and being monitored by his supervisors.
Good morning. Welcome to the Bad Apple Report. It's 7:30 a.m. bright and early right here at home on the range. Thank you so much for being here today, folks. I really appreciate it. We're back to having a full show. I had to do those little offshoots yesterday just to try to get those pieces out, because I kept getting a little red exclamation point when I tried to get the big show out. So we're going to try to get a big show out this morning. Look what we have here, you guys. A drunk driving cop. A Beaumont police officer has been arrested in Orange County for driving while intoxicated. Dakota Gaines is accused of driving while intoxicated. Oh, Dakota. You got that big old mustache and a half Betty. See, that's a half Betty when his hair's got the little swoop, but it's not so short on the sides like it would be a full Betty if it was really short on the sides. Anyways, this is Dakota. Let's meet Dakota, a Beaumont police officer who's on administrative leave now after he was arrested. And he's been accused of driving while intoxicated. And the jail records show that he was arrested on October 31st. Oh, he was having some Halloween night fun. And he's been bonded out. Gaines was sworn in 2022. And now he's watching the Bad Apple Report. Hey, Dakota. Okay, you guys are awesome. Let's move on with the show. Thanks for being here.
This ex-police officer being held here in the Fort Bend County Jail on an $800,000 bond tonight, facing 2 counts of manslaughter and 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. All 3 of those felony charges connected to a crash that happened back on June 20th along Cartwright Road in Missouri City. Someone called 911 to report that they were being robbed at an ATM. Officer Vladimir Viveros responded to the call. He slammed into a Toyota Corolla on the way, killing 53-year-old Angela Stewart and her 16-year-old son Mason on his birthday. Investigators found Officer Viveros was speeding and didn't have his emergency lights turned on. And after a couple hours on that scene, they realized he had a 53-year-old man in the backseat of his patrol car suffering serious injuries that required a hospital stay.
When I didn't come home from the store, I had my son's Jeep tracker on my phone. So I tracked him over here. So I drove around and came up here, and then when I saw my car, I told the officers, that's my car, that's my family. And he told me they were gone.
My mother will never see me walk across the stage. After working so hard to get my freaking doctorate, she will never see me.
Just a terrible tragedy tonight. The Stewart family wasn't ready to go on camera in light of this news, but through their attorney tells us that they are heartbroken beyond words, and in a statement wrote that Angela and Mason were taken from us far too soon by the actions of a police officer that shock the conscience. Today's indictment is just the first step towards accountability and should only be the beginning of holding the officer responsible for his wrongdoing. After this happened, the Missouri City Police Department chief said that Officer Viveros should not have been responding to that robbery call with someone else in his back seat. That officer got relieved of duty about a week after this crash happened. Keith and Daniela.
Well, Boris, I want to ask you, is anyone else taking any sort of legal action against the city or the police department?
Yeah, Daniela, tonight the city of Missouri City is facing 2 separate lawsuits in this crash. One of them, of course, from the Stewart family, but another from that man who was found in the back seat. His attorneys argue that he has permanent and paralyzing injuries, all because of that deadly crash.
Okay, folks, we have ourselves a cowardly bad apple, and his name is Sheriff Heath Jackson. Heath the coward. He didn't want to let us know the name of this deputy that's been fired, so we're going to call Heath the bad apple. Escambia, Alabama deputy fired after leaving canine in car, leading to its death. And the Sheriff Heath Jackson won't tell us what the name of the deputy is. An Escambia County, Alabama Sheriff's Office deputy has been fired after leaving the canine in the vehicle, leading to the death of the dog. The deputy finished a night shift and subsequently left the canine in the car. The deputy later found the dog deceased upon waking. Sheriff Heath Jackson, the loser, said Wednesday about the October 11th incident. After preliminary investigation, the deputy has been terminated. The case will be presented to a grand jury for further review. I want to express my heartfelt blah. Sheriff Heath, you're a knuckleheaded knucklehead. Nobody respects you or any of your knucklehead deputies. All right, on with the show. All right, we have ourselves another Bad Apple Report watcher who's been busted. You can tell. Look at him. He's mugging for us, you guys.
Just confirmed to 3 News that the man arrested in a shooting at a local elementary school was an off-duty Cleveland police officer. That man just identified as Alexander Sinclair. This all went down at Riverview Elementary School in Paynesville. Annabelle Childers has been on the scene all day. She's been talking with parents as well as students. Annabelle, what more can you tell us?
Well, Jay, the Lake County Sheriff's Office says this was a domestic incident involving a man who we now know as Alexander Sinclair and also an unidentified woman. But this happened as parents were dropping their kids off at school, so a large crowd watched all of this unfold. Chief Deputy Robert Izzo says the altercation began off the property but made its way into the school parking lot. And during this, Sinclair drove his vehicle into the woman's car. Izzo says Sinclair exited his car, and at some point a single shot was fired that went through a windshield. Izzo says a school resource officer saw Sinclair holding a gun and ordered him to drop it. Sinclair did release his gun, and Izzo says a struggle ensued between him and the deputy, but that deputy did ultimately arrest Sinclair.
No students or staff members were injured at all, and minor injuries to, I think, those are involved, minor injuries to our resource officer, who I think is truly a hero today for stopping this before it went.
All right. Hero on hero activity for you guys right here this morning on the Bad Apple Report. Now let's move on with the show.
The arrest of a police officer, and he's no stranger to being on the wrong side of the law. This time he's accused of driving drunk.
Something Officer David Young got in trouble for last year. At the time, he worked for the police department in Seminole. News Force K LLED shows us what happened this time around and the officer's apparent confession.
Like I told you, there ain't no getting past anything like this.
That's Okemah Officer David Young Friday night in Shawnee, after a Pottawatomie County deputy spotted his damaged truck split open like a sardine can, airbags deployed, running on rims.
He actually heard him first. He heard a noise like a grinding noise.
Young pulls into a local bar. You can see the deputy's lights not too far behind him. Young casually stumbles inside, then tossing what deputies say appears to be a bottle of Febreze over the bar.
He's told the bartender, I never left, I was here the whole time.
Eventually, deputies get the 37-year-old cuffed and in the back of a patrol car. At first, Young denies it was him behind the wheel.
I wasn't driving.
He said you were.
He saw me sitting by a door of a bar.
He's seen you driving by.
He saw me driving by.
That excuse doesn't hold up for long.
Doors are locked. That's the key to it.
Okay.
So, keys on him.
Inside the truck, deputies find numerous items from the force, like his bulletproof vest.
There's that. Take that.
That's not his I want.
He ain't gonna be a cop anymore.
Along with his rifle, a full magazine, and his pistol.
Just want to make sure. Hey, and one in the chamber. Okay.
On the floorboard, his Okemah police badge, body camera, and radio wet.
It was covered in alcohol next to an empty can of Michelob Ultra.
And finally, a 12-pack of Michelob Ultra, 4 cans shy of being full.
Guess what?
What'd you find?
There's an open container.
With the evidence stacked up against him, Young comes clean.
He's admitted to being an alcoholic.
Hey, you're a cop. You get it. I got a job to do, right? You would do the same to me.
I'm guilty.
What are you guilty for?
I'm guilty whatever you said I did.
So was you driving?
Yep, 100%. Can y'all keep
that
on internet?
While we were talking to the sheriff and the deputies, Young gave me a call. He didn't have too much to add, mumbling he was, quote, screwed. The sheriff and his deputies hopes Young finds help because this could have had a different ending.
I'm not too empathetic with someone who's going to put other people's lives at risk.
In Pottawatomie County, Caitlin Ogle,
In October of 2022, Jordan Schwertner was serving time at the Summit County Jail on drug charges. Records show he and then Summit County Deputy April Woodside began a sexual relationship while she worked at the jail. She later admitted this to investigators.
We had intercourse.
You had intercourse?
Yes.
Where did that take place?
In the cell.
The jail's shift commander at the time says deputies also suspected Woodside was smuggling drugs into the jail.
I had a deputy come to me from day shift and state that he believes that she's selling drugs to inmates or giving drugs to inmates on the pod.
Charles worked for the Summit County Sheriff's Office for nearly 25 years. He recently resigned as lieutenant. Since he still works in law enforcement, he asked us to identify him only by his first name. Records show when deputies questioned Woodside, she denied giving drugs to Schwertner.
Did you bring cocaine?
No, I did not. I did not.
However, Schwertner claims she did.
Yeah, she was bringing me a whole bunch of
Schwertner's now in a state prison. We spoke with him by phone. What kind of drugs did she bring you?
I had meth, coke, heroin, fentanyl.
A few days before Woodside was fired for having sex with Schwertner, he says deputies raided his cell. 19 Investigates obtained records showing they found suspected narcotics. The report also listed Woodside as the sole suspect, but we don't know if those items were tested to confirm whether they were drugs. We do know neither Woodside nor Schwartner have been charged in connection with that case.
They found contraband, cigarettes, lighters, and possible drugs in the cell.
What was done about that?
To my knowledge, nothing.
In Ohio, it's a felony for an officer to have sex with or provide drugs to an inmate. But in October of 2022, the investigator wrote, although the investigation is not closed, it was not being pursued criminally at this time. And this report states Woodside's criminal case was closed 2 months later. However, SCSO now tells 19 Investigates this case is still open. According to reports, it's clear SCSO suspected someone smuggled drugs into the jail. Now Charles is concerned whether this case will be properly investigated.
I can't think of anybody in the jail that escaped charges for having drugs and contraband inside the jail.
SCSO's policy states all controlled substances will be submitted to BCI for testing. So we asked the sheriff's office if they sent the items to BCI, but they haven't responded. We then requested the results from BCI, but they told us we found no laboratory submissions and no BCI investigation related to April Woodside.
I've never seen where somebody has covered up something so blatant.
Is it a cover-up?
I believe so, yes.
DOJ is still reviewing this complaint that Charles filed online. We did reach out to Woodside and Sheriff Candy Fothery for comment, but we haven't heard back.
To be very clear, we do not see this as a full security threat to the state. This is not a security threat.
The employee responsible for inadvertently exposing passwords to Colorado voting equipment on the Colorado Secretary of State's website has been fired. The partial leak comes as voting systems have been tested by cyber attacks in October. A cyber attack in Georgia was thwarted before it could take down the website. While Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold did not take the blame for the incident, she said the passwords were mistakenly posted for several months and were discovered by her office.
We have layers of security, and out of just an abundance of caution, have staff in the field changing passwords, looking at access logs.
She did not describe the incident as a threat to election integrity.
Our security has improved, including the 24/7 hour cameras, including the badge and access. The law has been significantly strengthened since then. We have multiple layers in place to ensure situations like Mesa County don't occur, and that is not what is occurring here.
Travis County Judge Dana Blasey will decide the punishment of Officer Taylor. In Texas, defendants get to choose whether a judge or jury makes that decision.
Something wrong happened to your son.
The first witness called by the prosecution to testify was Denzil De Silva, the father of Morris De Silva. The Austin man was experiencing a mental health crisis when he was shot and killed in a downtown high-rise. Today, his father described how the 2019 shooting death has wrecked his life and his family's.
It is for our whole life we are suffering.
Officer Taylor was also tried in an unrelated case, the 2020 death of Michael Ramos. That trial ended with a deadlocked jury and the charges were later dropped. But evidence and witnesses from that case are being used in deciding Taylor's punishment. Tavone Jefferson took cell phone video of the Ramos shooting.
There's so many police officers all around us, for one, with guns. And he kept screaming, I don't have a weapon, I don't have a weapon, I don't have a weapon.
Taylor's attorneys questioned Jefferson about why the video showed some officers calling Ramos by name.
Were you aware that car was stolen?
No.
Were you aware that he had evaded police twice in that same vehicle, in the same area, just prior to this shooting?
I didn't know that.
The mother of Michael Ramos also testified about the loss of her son.
I was in shock. And my body just went numb. And I haven't been the same ever since.
The defense team asked Brenda Ramos if she was aware her son was arrested 19 times between the ages of 18 and 40.
Do you know, or have you heard that his total charges were 29 charges, 19 of those were felonies, 10 were misdemeanors?
Prosecutors are presenting their case right now. Because of scheduling conflicts, the defense will not call its witnesses until late November.
Okay, friends, we are done for the day. Thank you so much for being here to watch the Bad Apple Report this morning and every morning right here at home on the range. Okay, I'm going to go whip up another batch of bad apples just for you, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks again for being here, folks.